Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to help change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share. That's how we get the word out. I'm really excited for all of our guests, but I'm excited for our guests today. Karen and I just met, found out we live in the same city, so we're going to become friends. So I'm excited for that. I don't know if she is, but I am. But I'm really excited. This lady has an incredible story we touched on a little bit. She's been in marketing for 15 years. She started her company about 2.5 years ago and has been helping a lot of people with marketing and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into it as we go, but thanks for being on the show, Cara.
Yeah, thanks, Angela, for having me.
Awesome. So let's get into marketing in general. What got you into marketing, 15 years ago? Was that, I'm always curious where people get into where they get. So
yeah. So really boring. University, took a psych degree like everyone does when you don't know what you want to do. And it's like the BA in psych, so it's not even the real psych degree. And really from there, I started to dabble into market research, and I really loved market research. I loved the quantifying data and decision making and all of that. And that was before that was cool. It's cool now, but 15 years ago, that wasn't that cool. People used to look at market research and be like, oh, there's so much added expense. Oh my goodness. And started to really just fall in love with it that way. And then a lovely human by the name of Adam Sproul. So if you're a local, you know the greenhouses, Salisbury Greenhouse and Landscaping, took a chance on a kid who wanted to try out being a marketing director. I just ended up wanting to try something, and he thought I would be good at it. And I didn't even apply for that. I applied to maybe get into some design or greenhouse purchasing, and we just met, and he was like, I think you could do marketing. And I was like, well, yeah, that sounds great. So I got to fail so much there over that first 5 years, not the last, the first 5 years of my career there. And he just was so supportive, and that company was so supportive, and they're still amazing. A lot of people that I worked with back then are still there. But it was just such a great experience for my first real job out of university. It was my first one, and I hit the gold pot where I couldn't have been happier. I didn't leave because I was unhappy. I left because I fell in love with the tech world and wanted to try a new industry. So it just ended up being such a good place to learn, and a safe space to fail, and a safe place to try ideas and do market research too. We got to do some, he wasn't scared of it. And, I think those early leaders that you have in your life help paint a really big picture of where you're going to go.
I want to touch on the failure. You've mentioned it a few times, and a lot of people are listening to this. They've either started a business, or they're going to start a business, or failure is a real reality. What made you I'm going to say almost step into the failure? Growing up, was that something that was encouraged in your family, or you saw your parents? It wasn't a bad thing. A lot of people get their first failure and they're like, "This isn't for me. I'm out. I'm moving on." You just said you just failed your way for 5 years. So,
during the 5 years when I was young, no, absolutely. I was not that kind to myself. I think grace and kindness and humility get learned over time.
But you kept trying? Because a lot of people just give up. They fail and they give up. So why didn't you give up? Where do you think?
Because I really loved it. I thought the challenge was interesting, and I found a love for it. And maybe not in the time did I love it, but the skills that I was getting to flex from a creativity standpoint, plus a strategy standpoint, plus, a bit of a project management standpoint. And again, we're talking 15 years ago, me didn't see it that way. But now 15 years later, me, I look back at that and I go, wow, look at these foundational skills that I got to learn that are still foundational within my life today as a CEO, around problem solving and making sure that there's strategic thinking before action. But there's a self-awareness that comes, at least if you want it, within your career, in your journey. I'm not saying that everybody wants it, but I really hope that people who are listening to this are coming to your podcast with wanting to learn something and being curious to learn something. And there's just a mindset, a growth mindset around, for me at least, looking back at how I got to where I am today and where I want to go, and honoring that journey. Like, we don't do enough of that, of like, hey, these are the things that happened to me, and these are the things that were really great. And here's how I'm going to reframe this for myself, because now that I've had time to digest this is what's happened, and I'm going to honor that for myself. And I think that's a really big piece, that we just go on to the next thing and we don't stop to just have a moment to say, wow, I've been in 15 years in marketing. What did that look like?
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. So then you switched into tech and marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you did that, and how is that? What were some of the struggles you worked through, and some of the challenges that you felt like from there you had to overcome?
Yeah. So then I got to work under the amazing leadership of Lindsay Dodd. Lindsay is pretty well known in our lovely local industry. He's the CEO right now of Cashco Financial. But with Lindsay, it was a whole nother ball game. He was so family and people centric, around how he ran his team. Like, his team was very, like, we would talk about the weekend, and we would talk about, personal things. And he was very personal focused with how he ran his business, and the people that were involved. And a lot of them are lifetime friends. And, that was really interesting. And I wasn't there for that long. I came in, and Lindsay and I were talking, and he said, like, I want to bring in a marketer, but my ultimate goal is, that I'm going to eventually sell this business. And, I need to clean up the brand, and I need to make it like go to market. I need to look at this. And, it was really cool, because 11 months later, he sold the business, and we had this like awesome brand, and got to keep some of that brand in the new business a little bit. And then I got to work on the new business that, bought and did the M&A and the merger and the acquisition for that time. And so that was the Savvia merger into CompuVision. And that was fantastic learning. I had never done an M&A before. And so, that was so fun to do the communications and the PR and the creative, and handle all of that, and work with, again, at that point, the CompuVision team. What was really a complete, interesting piece there is, I went on mat leave. So right after that whole thing happened, I went on mat leave, and I went and had my son. And then a year later, I came back. So I didn't have to be part of kind of that messy period of the M&A. I got to jump in when it was all perfect, and the hurdles and the rocks and the barriers were gone. And I came in with these shiny glasses of like, all right, let's jump into something new. And it was almost like starting a new career all over again. So with that, another wonderful leader. So Ryan Vesby, who CEO of CompuVision and now the CEO of EC3, Ryan and I count him as one of my dearest friends, to be quite honest. Like, I really enjoy his leadership style. It was very direct, very, quick moving, very aware. He was a very self-aware leader. It was the first time I had started to think about, pieces of my life with him leading that I had never really thought about before. Like, how do we meet other people where we at? What is actually going to propel active listening? Like, I know these sound so tiny, but they're huge pieces of like internal personal growth. And, Ryan took, and still does, to everyone he comes into contact with. Like, he takes such an interest into you personally and how you grow yourself, that it was just that was such a fun tenure there, and I was there for just over 7 years.
Oh, that's cool. So then you went from there, and then tell us where you went from there.
Yeah. So while I was at CompuVision, they had never had internal marketing before. So when I came off mat leave with my bright, shiny glasses, I remember vividly Ryan sitting me in his office and he was like, okay, so you have no budget and you have no resources, but go make something happen. And I was like, well, that is a challenge in itself. And I unfortunately am a very competitive person. And I just decided that's what we were going to do. So I took a look at the first thing I did is I took a look at what they had done previously. And I noticed that they were spending quite a bit of money on marketing agencies. And really looking at the amount spent and what they got and how much time it took, and really auditing the process of kind of how did they get to where they were at today in their marketing journey. And rather than just come out of the gate with like, here's all my ideas, I went to Ryan and I said, okay, if I have no budget and I have no resources, how are we going to do this? And he said, have you ever heard about the gig economy? And I said, no, I haven't. And he said, well, why don't you go check it out and get back to me and see if that's a valuable solution for us? Or should we go do more agencies? Or should we hire a consultant? He's like, I want you to look at all the options. So with that, we decided to build a scalable marketing team using global resources and global talent. And over that first year, we saved almost 70% of the marketing budget and we did 3x the output. And it was a huge year of the power of scalable teams. And from there, I couldn't work any other way. Like, it was like, I don't know if you play video games, but it's like you play video games and it's like level unlocked. Like, that's what it felt like. And it was just time to keep going. And so I look at my time at CompuVision now, looking back at it, I'm like, wow, that was great R&D for Infinite. Like, that's what that ended up being for me, and not knowing it at the time, and obviously creating a ton of value while I was there, and being really loyal. And like, I personally thought I was a great employee, but while I was learning those skills of how to grow a team, a lot of that translated to now what Infinite is today.
So tell us a little bit about, let's now get into where did Infinite come from and how was it started and why?
Sure. So everyone has their own COVID stories. We all have whatever story we have of what COVID meant to each other. And I know it's the dreaded word. And we're not supposed to talk about it anymore because it doesn't exist. But for me, it was very impactful in my life. My dad passed away from COVID. He was in one of the very first 50 Albertans to contract the disease. We couldn't be there when he passed away. I actually wrote an entire article on it in Disruption Magazine Canada, which if anyone ever wants to read it, you are more than welcome to go there and look. The 2-page story of what that was, an article on what that was, and how I was so thankful that I had worked in tech because I was able to rig up some tech so at least, we could see him every once in a while, and my family who couldn't travel could say their goodbyes. And so there was just so much going on at that time and so much unknown, like, right, like the hospitals it was like a war zone. Like, you couldn't go in, you couldn't go out. Like, it was so stressful and so traumatic for myself and my family. Like, that time was just really traumatic. So for that time, I was finding it really hard to navigate. At that point, CompuVision was going through a merger and acquisition with VC3. So not only was my world turned upside down with COVID, my world was turned upside down with my dad, and then now my work world was turned upside down with this M&A and new leaders and being tired and having my kid at home and having to be, the school and the parent and the worker all at once, and also dealing with a death on top of it. And it became so much. Um and I wasn't in my full capacity, um showing up as my best self. And while they were in their M&A, the new leaders I was meeting were seeing not my best self because of what we were dealing with. And so I really I really look back at that, and me leaving was the best thing that could have ever happened, because I just had enough. And my email to Ryan, which was really hard to write, was sometimes we have to break our hearts so that our souls don't die. And that was the quote. And that was where I was at. I just couldn't do it anymore. And I needed to refocus. And I had no plans to do anything. I left to leave, not to start a business. I had thought about starting a business, um, of consulting and something kind of tiny. I didn't really expect Infinite to be what Infinite is today. And I'm so excited, and it continues to grow and feed my soul and do the things that it needs. But yeah, it was, during that time, it was just hard. It was so hard.
Can't imagine. So, like, really can't imagine. And my sympathy. So when you started Infinite, what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome in order to start a business? Was that something like, I mean, your whole family's going through a hard time for all of that, but was that something that they understood, or your friends, or they're like, yeah, you start a business, sounds like a fantastic idea, or they're like, you were in a good job, it sounds like, why are you not
Oh,
still
yeah.
there? Like, how did you navigate some of that? Because that's, I think, a common thing.
Well, and it was COVID. They're like, you're lucky to have a job and a position. Why would you leave it?
Right.
Like, that was the
Exactly.
conversation that I was having
Hmm.
constantly. Like, it kind of became the thing that we just didn't talk about. Like, I just didn't talk about it for like a good year, because I was met with so much like cynicism from everyone else.
So what
So
kept you going through all of that? Because that takes a lot of people out again, because they care about, I mean, their friends and family care about them. So they take it to heart and, kind of do that. What got you through those days that you're like, oh, they don't understand, I'll keep going? What were some of the thoughts or things did that, helped you at that point?
I think the support of my husband was probably a good main piece.
Mm.
Also looking at that beautiful child that I had and knowing that I needed to be there for him first. Everything else would work itself out and be second.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to build a life for myself where I could mom and own a business, and I sing in my spare time and sing and go to yoga and I had this like
Have it
wish
all.
list of things that I wanted to do. And life felt really short all of a sudden for me. Like, when you lose a parent, life feels short. It's a weird thing that shifts in your brain. It's like the first time for me, like, your grandparents, they pass away, but they were your grandparents, they were old, right? When a parent goes, and they go earlier than what you thought they would go, and still had life to live and still had plans. And like a week prior to that, you were talking to them and they were talking about like normal everyday life things. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway I had was that life felt really short all of a sudden. And I wanted to be in control. I didn't want to give my control and choice away anymore. And I really wanted to control the outcome of how I was going to live this next phase of my life. And that's what Infinite gives me. It gives me choice and control, and it gives that to everyone that gets to work with us and work for us.
I love that. Balance, you can't have it all. Just showing that you can actually have it all. A lot of people are like, can't have it all. Like, you can have it all. So that's really cool. What, if someone's getting into marketing, I mean, this is your bread and butter and everything you've been doing for 15 years. What are some of the, I don't know what you call them, like traps that people fall into when it comes to marketing that you see as a common problem or shortfall or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when people do like random acts of marketing and then they go, "Oh, it didn't work." Like that's my favorite conversation to have when we're, chatting with a prospect and they're like, "Well, we tried this." And I'm like, "Well, did you do the 5 steps before that, before you decided to do that?" And they're like, "Well, no." Well, yes, there's a few steps prior to that. I kind of look at it like building a house, and this is the easiest way I can
Mm,
say it is like you have to have a solid foundation and you have to build that foundation first before you can like pour the next level and frame it and do the next things and build your house all the way up to the roof. And then there's inside of the house and the exterior and how that's going to look and feel and how many rooms do you need, and like I can go on and on and on. What tools are you going to take out of the toolbox to actually like build it? Like I need a hammer, I need a saw, I need a like it's very much a methodical, strategic process. And when people just decide to go ad hoc into the market without strategy, it doesn't work. You might get some like quick wins, small results, but it doesn't work over time. And I think people don't invest in having the conversations with true marketing strategists. And I really want to say this, there's this weird thing happening in the market right now. So Infinite is a exclusive ecosystem of fractional talent, and we have fractional talent from the CMO role all the way down to a marketing coordinator, kind of more junior level, who would post your social content kind of thing. And so we take you all the way from strategic to full execution. Like we're a full plug and play marketing solution. Um, but what people don't understand is fractional means you've had to have done it before. So fractional is not a consultant. Like a consultant is very like, I've seen other people do this before, and this is what I know from, reading books or lived experience with some of their clients. But a fractional talent is someone who has actually sat in the role and had to perform the responsibilities and the duties of that role from start to finish. And at Infinite, they had to perform that with successes. They couldn't just perform it for nothing. So we truly work with the top 1% of talent across the world. And we're really looking for that marketing genius to be part of our talent bench that we can plug and play into companies around the world. We're pretty North American based, but have all the capabilities to grow past that if someone came knocking on our door. But it's really about just, we have this slogan, it's no barriers, and only infinite possibilities. And I think that's the biggest piece that is different from us than the agency model. Is I find the agency model is constantly putting barriers in place for you or hoops to jump through for you prior to getting to the end result. And while we're still going to do some strategy work with you, it's not going to be like 9 months of strategy work. It's going to be, 9 weeks of strategy work to help us get to that end goal, because we've done it before. We've already been in that position and we know what works in your industry versus having to come in and learn an industry completely new.
That makes sense. That's awesome. I love that. Well, I know we could go forever, but I always have 3 final questions to wrap up, and anything that we didn't touch on that you think would be impactful. And guys, if you're looking for marketing tips and stuff, we'll have all of Cara's information in the show notes. Please feel free to reach out to her. I'm sure she'll, be able to assist you in all kinds of marketing from start to finish, it sounds like, which is pretty cool. So first and final question is, if someone's looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
Yeah. So to me, I have a love-hate relationship with purpose. For me, it's more like I'm a vision statement. So vision is like, how am I going to change the world? And then mission is, the daily effort of what it takes for me to get there. And then those combined equal my purpose and impact that I'm going to make. So um I kind of break it out a little bit differently, but um personally purpose, like my personal purpose. Before I started Infinite, I did a lot of soul searching to really think through what I wanted this business to be, not just for myself, but for others, and what model and core and values and just impact that I wanted it to make. And so I think, we don't give ourselves enough thinking time. And I said that at the beginning of this show, like we really are doing ourselves a disservice without giving ourselves thinking time, because once you can think through it, it just becomes so much more clear.
Second question, what's a favorite quote and why?
That is a really good question. I think for me, don't follow the crowd, let the crowd follow you.
Awesome. I love it. And third and final question, it's what is one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
So the one word that or sentence I'd like on my gravestone is that she achieved everything she wanted to achieve.
I love that. All right. We run into someone in a coffee shop. They've learned about failure. They've learned about, going through tragic times and using that as a catalyst for growth. What's something we didn't touch on that you want to leave our listeners with?
Oh, those are really big topics. I mean, those are good ones to leave them with and noodle. I don't want to overwhelm anyone, but I just, if there's more that anyone wants to chat about and maybe more around any type of marketing, LinkedIn is a great place to find me.
Awesome. Like I said, guys, we'll have her information, Cara's information and Infinite Marketing in the show notes. Reach out. I know she'd be super happy to help with any questions or any help that you need for you or your businesses or whatever. Guys, let's go out there. Let's change the world one starfish or one person at a time. If we can change one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks for being on, Cara.
Yeah, thank you.